All right, this week we are wrapping up compound inequalities with solving them, not just graphing them. So one thing to remember when you solve inequalities, it's just like an equation. Do the same steps you would do if it said equals. It's just we have an inequality symbol instead. And important to remember, when you multiply or divide by a negative, make sure you flip that inequality symbol. That's going to be important to remember. That's the only difference between solving an inequality and an equation. So let's start with the first one. It says y minus 3 is less than or equal to negative 11, and 2y minus 6 less than or equal to negative 16. So you see we have two different inequalities. So for now you can just kind of think of them as separate inequalities and solve them separately. So the first one, we're just going to add 3 to both sides. And we get y is less than or equal to negative 8. Okay, so that's our first one. Second one, we're going to add 6. So we got 2y is less than or equal to negative 10. Divide by 2, and y is less than or equal to negative 5. Notice we don't need to flip the symbol because we didn't divide by a negative. Our answer is negative, but this 2 is a positive, so you leave the symbol the way it is. And don't forget, this is an and inequality. So here's our solution. Here's our answer right here. Y is less than or equal to negative 8, and y is less than or equal to negative 5. And we need to graph the solution. So let's put negative 8 and negative 5 on the line. It's an and, so we only graph the overlap. So we're going less than or equal to from negative 8 and less than or equal to from negative 5. And so remember, we just want the overlap, which is from negative 8 on down. So just like that. That's where those two overlap. So remember, for and inequalities, just graph the overlap. For or, you can just graph. All right, so next one. Switch colors here. We got negative 2m plus 7 is greater than or equal to 13, or 5m plus 12 is greater than 37. So we have an or inequality this time. But again, still just solve them separately. So negative 2m greater than or equal to 6 after we subtract 7. And then divide by negative 2. And this time we're dividing by a negative, so we flip the symbol. We get less than or equal to negative 3. Don't forget to flip that symbol when you divide by a negative. Okay, second inequality here, subtract 12. 5m is greater than 25. Divide by positive 5. And m is greater than 5. And remember, this is an or inequality. So here's the solution. And now we graph, and since this is an or, we just graph them both on the same number line. Don't worry about overlap. So we got negative 3 and positive 5. We are going less than or equal to negative 3, which is filled in and shaded to the left, and greater than 5 is open, shaded to the right. So with or, again, you don't worry about if they overlap, you can just graph them. Now this last example, remember this is an and inequality. And since it's kind of smashed together, we're going to solve all the parts at the same time. So first you want to add 3 to both sides. Actually all 3 sides. Kind of like separate, we got 3 areas here. And we get 1 less than or equal to x less than 7. So remember from last week, when your inequalities look like this, x is always shaded in the middle. So we're going to put the correct circles on here, filled in on the 1, open on the 7, and then just shade in between. Okay, so you have it. You've got 4 questions here, 2 to just graph and 2 to solve and graph. And then later this week, you will have a quiz over this material in Canvas. So do your best on that. And remember to email if you have any questions throughout the week.